Hi, I'm Katherine Gray, founder of She Angel Investors and co founder of the She Angels Foundation. I'm also the podcast host of Invest in Her and an award winning producer, author, and TEDx speaker. Our show, Invest in Her, features phenomenal female founders and funders. As you know, women receive less than 2% of venture capital funding. Our series is about accelerating the funding of women by connecting them to funding resources. Let's meet today's guest. She's recognized by Entrepreneur Magazine as one of the top 100 most powerful women in the country. She has graced the cover of Forbes magazine, and she is the co-founder of SoGal Ventures. I'd like to welcome to the show Pocket Sun. Hi, Pocket. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Catherine, for inviting me.
Oh my God, I'm so happy to have you in LA. We are shooting a film together that's going to be coming out soon that is amazing about your incredible story and that of some other women that are founders and funders. Now that I have you here in LA, I want to, tell the audience, about your incredible journey of being born in China and then coming to the United States to become one of the 100 most powerful women in the country. I mean, okay, like this is something people want to know.
It sounds crazy.
Yeah, it is always weird to hear a recap of our accomplishments, right? Especially at 30 years old. Mm-hmm. I'm allowed to give your age away, right?
Yes.
Okay, okay, good. It's so good we're the same age. It's a beautiful thing. No, really, what's the journey like from being born, growing up in China, and coming to the United States to come here for college? Like, what was that transition, and how did it impact what you do today?
Yeah, so now that I look back on it, I think it was really the beginning of my entrepreneurship journey. Because being, a newcomer to a foreign country and not speaking the language as your first language and having to really, jump into very intense, heavy coursework that, I just had no exposure to previously, that was a huge challenge. So an example to illustrate that is before I came to the US, in high school in China, I was asked to write 250 words about what I did after school. And that was all you needed to write.
And wait, what did you write in that? What did you say?
Well, we didn't really have much extracurricular activities, so you just make things up.
Oh, okay.
But then 2 months later, I'm here in the US and I am like in this, freshman seminar class, which requires me to write a 10 to 20 page essay on women spies during World War II.
Wow.
So
that had to be fascinating.
It was quite a jump and very challenging.
Yeah. So after Women Marry, you went to USC and got your master's, right?
Yes. And not linear that way. I worked in Chicago for a year or so and was trying to find, where suits me. And in the middle of that, my H-1B visa, the work visa as an international student that I had to get, I didn't pass the lottery for it. And 48% of people who applied for this visa and qualified for this visa didn't pass the lottery.
Wow.
But back then I didn't plan for that scenario. And I was facing this tough decision. Do I go back to China when I just had started my new job a few months ago? Or do I go to grad school to stay in the U.S.?
Oh, so that's why you went to grad school.
Yes, it was
and
not
what a blessing
planned.
it turned out to be.
I know. I
Oh my
always
gosh,
say
that changed the whole trajectory of your life.
Yeah, I'm an accidental venture capitalist.
Yeah, yeah. So let's talk about that. So why did you become involved in the venture capital world? Like, especially in your 20s, like, most people, venture into that, no pun intended, later in life. But at 23 years old, what was the catalyst to you deciding, I think I can start a venture capital fund that usually is done by all, older white men? Like, hello, what was the,
It was crazy.
Yeah.
But entrepreneurship is magical. Once your brain opens up to new possibilities, anything could happen.
I agree.
So before I came to USC, I had just learned about venture capital. And it was the first time in my life that I heard about this word, venture capital. And entrepreneurship was also a new concept to me before I came to LA. And I thought I was just going to be in LA for a year, finish the master's program, and go back to Chicago and, work at a corporate, because my passion was really in consumer brands and, what are the brands that could change the culture of the next generation. So I came here to LA, I enrolled in this entrepreneurship program at SC, and very quickly realized, holy moly, I love entrepreneurship. This is so cool.
Yeah.
This is such a direct way to create an impact. So I thought, wow, I never wanted to go back to my corporate world again.
I relate to all of this. I think most entrepreneurs do. Once you've had that taste of entrepreneurship, you really don't want to go back to corporate America.
Yeah. So very quickly, I was immersing myself in the world of entrepreneurship and started a community on campus. And that was the origin of SoGal, because I didn't find other women at these, startup events, and especially not young women, especially not women of color. I just felt constantly, kind of isolated and alone in the startup ecosystem.
Yeah.
And that was a new problem to me. And I decided to, try to solve it on my own. And at the same time, I can help other people who might encounter similar issues. So there you go. Like, SoGal was born as a community to support, other women, tech entrepreneurs.
Mm-hmm.
And it quickly grew. We found product market fit, and the community was growing. We hosted large events. And in that process, I realized, wow, like, all these women entrepreneurs needed money.
Yeah.
They all needed capital to grow their business. And if they don't have it, they are at such a disadvantage that, they have much less of a chance to become $1 billion company, to go public,
Right.
to become, a positive role model for, VCs when they think about, oh, who am I going to fund next?
Right.
And they have difficulty establishing this pattern recognition for women, because they have no recollection of, who are the women CEOs that took a company public.
Right.
So
and there weren't many because they didn't have that opportunity.
Exactly.
And, I just did a TED Talk on this about people tend to invest in people they identify with. So when it's all white men at the table making the investment decisions, that's who they invest in, which is why women get less than 2% of venture capital funding, right?
Yes.
So you're having this epiphany, I take it, and thinking, what can I do to help fix this?
Yeah. And I realized that there were so many biases in this whole process, because investors kind of, take pride in pattern recognition, and also in, how it's based on past experience, and how they're investing in the latest innovation and whatnot. But they just ignore the fact that women have been, crippled from the beginning.
Yeah.
And now we're running the race, and, people who have been privileged are saying, oh, look at women running slower. So we should not invest in them. And we should just,
And
let them go to the
they've
side.
been doing amazing things without capital. Imagine what they could do with capital, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I think it's amazing to think about how far women have come just in the past 40, 50 years. Because if you think about it, really only 40, 50 years ago, women started to fully participate in the workplace.
Right.
They were finally allowed
to
participate in the workplace. And
so,
look at where women
you're right.
have gone.
In such a short amount of time, they've done amazing things.
Yes.
And if, since 50% of the population is women, that's 50% of the brain power and innovations. We need to get 50% of the funding, right?
Yeah.
So recognizing this problem, you decide you're going to start a fund at 20-something years old. I mean, this is crazy. It's crazy, right? I mean,
Yes.
it's crazy amazing is what it is. Yeah.
I'm well aware how crazy it was. So I saw it as an entrepreneur that I wanted to solve this problem. And starting a VC fund was the most direct solution I could see at the time. So I met my business partner, Elizabeth Galbut, who is amazing and incredible. We met in May 2015 when the idea of venture capital was, really in my head. And I met her. It was really the right time. She was also graduating from Johns Hopkins, and she had very similar experience seeing how entrepreneurs of Baltimore were not getting any attention that they deserve. So she always says, she always jokes that it's Stanford talent at Baltimore prices. And that's the reality that we were facing. How do we, fix the mismatch that we were seeing?
Right.
Amazing talent out of Silicon Valley, solving problems that very few investors had interest in or paid attention to at the time. So we decided to do it on our own and started brainstorming how can we start a VC fund.
That is incredible, because that's no easy thing. And what's really interesting, and the reason that we're wanting to tell your story and in the film and today, is because it's just kind of starting to percolate that more and more women are starting their own funds as a way to solve this problem.
Yes.
And most of them, like you, are focused on underserved communities that haven't been getting funding. Women, LGBTQ, people of color, and I love that you focus on that. So how did you start this fund? I mean, that's the $1 million question I know everybody listening wants to know. What was your first step? How did you get your first investor when you had no track record and you're 23 years old?
Yes, we knew that we had to do things differently. But we also had really high conviction in this thesis. Our vision was that the rising of the rest of us, including women, of course, is the largest investment opportunity of my lifetime.
Absolutely.
So, but at the time, no one saw it that way.
Yeah.
And gender was not something that was really talked about in the venture space.
But
and
obviously you were good at conveying that to potential investors.
we realized that we had to. This
Yeah.
market education, this advocacy, this, being the pioneer, being outspoken, waving the flag, we had to do all of that. Because
Yeah.
we started in 2015. It was 3 years before Me Too. It was, before all this conversation about gender lens investing, impact investing, ESG emerged.
Yeah.
So
No, you were one of the first.
yeah, so we knew that, we're onto something very different.
Yeah.
But of course, we had this period of really doubting ourselves, feeling, oh my God, like the biggest imposter syndrome you could imagine. Right?
I think every entrepreneur goes through that, whether they
Yeah.
admit it or not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, we went
I mean,
through
I
it.
could see why you would go through that at 20-something, never having raised a fund,
Yeah, a lot of
deciding you
tears.
needed to trailblaze here.
Yeah.
But
But-
you went forward and how much was your first fund?
So we decided to raise 15. We thought it was a good size and it was
Yeah,
already
15 million, folks. 15.
Yes, it was
15 is
also-
15 million.
already an astronomical number for us at the time, but we just decided, okay, this is how much it will take for us to carry out the strategy that we created. And of course, we had to start somewhere. So when we decided we're going to start a VC fund, I started making very tiny investments on AngelList. My first investment, I still remember, it was an AI company founded by a Black founder, and I invested $1,000.
Okay, that's a start. No, I like that because our listeners need to know they too could start the same way with a $1,000 investment. Sure.
Yeah, and then I started to do, $2,000, $3,000 from my own savings. And my business partner, Elizabeth, started a fund for Johns Hopkins University, which was the reason why she went to the program where we met. So she started that fund by cold calling all the Johns Hopkins alumni who are doing anything related to finance or tech or entrepreneurship. So that was our experiment.
Yeah.
We were kind of learning together in that process, although I was not directly involved in that fund. She was able to, learn the whole process from fundraising to fund administration to the legal documents around setting up a fund,
Sure.
the accounting and tax of it, the selection, the due diligence, the negotiations of the terms, all of it. So we were learning very, very quickly together, and we were like sponges, trying to absorb every piece of information. But it was really tough because there was a lot of information on the internet about how to start a startup at the time, but there was nothing about how to start a VC fund.
Right.
And things have changed, luckily.
Right. You need to do an e-course on that. Seriously.
We are teaching.
Good,
We're teaching
good.
women to become angel investors and startup investors, and that's really meaningful work for us. But at the time, what we did was we hacked our way into venture capital. We were, really spreading the word about investing in women is the largest opportunity and why we believe in it and why we decided to do it. And we really thought, no one else is doing this.
Right.
So we might as well give it a shot and
Right.
see where, how far we could go with it.
I know yesterday you said to me, you thought, if not us, then who?
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. If not now, then
Yeah.
when?
Yeah.
So that was the ethos.
Yeah. Somebody had to break that barrier.
Yeah. And another thing
And
we
all
did,
the white men there had the VC funds, which is 98% of them, I'm sure, poo-pooed you and said, oh, this can't be
yes,
done, right?
Yes, they did.
Of course they did. Yeah, but you showed them. You guys have gone on to be super successful. A lot of times these male-oriented funds, they're lucky if they get, one unicorn, which is $1 billion company, right? But you all have invested in many companies and have hit 5 unicorns, 5 that are going to be unicorns or have been unicorns.
Yeah. So in the past 7 years, Elizabeth and I started from zero to now we have invested in over 150 startups. And we have
Wow.
also invested with very small checks into some diverse-led funds as well to pay it forward. And we have invested in North America, in Africa, in Asia, in Europe, in like every place you can think of. And we have been very lucky. Like our fund one has $2 billion plus companies already, another
Wow.
one in the making.
In your fund one,
In my fund one,
$2 billion companies have come out of that.
Yes.
That is incredible.
Yeah.
Bravo.
And so
No wonder you're one of the top 100 most powerful women in the country. I mean, that is incredible.
yeah, they saw our
You've done
potential.
more in 7 years than most people have in a lifetime. So talk about an inspiration.
We did squeeze a lot of that into a very short period of time because we knew we had to learn. We didn't
Yes.
have a track record.
Yeah.
We didn't have, the traditional credentials that people were looking for. So we
Right.
knew that we just had to give it our 500% of effort.
Yeah. Who in the venture capital world is your hero?
That's a great question. I'd say when we started, there were not many women before us. But I really want to give a shout out to Anu at Female Founders Fund. She started the fund before we did, and she was a great inspiration. And her fund has gone out to do so well. We've done some co-investments. I respect her a whole lot. And I think, it was really bold and powerful what she was able to do. And we started SoGal, it was really comforting to know that Anu has done this.
Yes.
And, it could be done. We could do this.
Yeah. And now you've inspired other women to look
Yeah.
at you and say, well, Pocket Sun and Elizabeth did this. I can do it too.
Exactly.
It really is about that. Seeing someone else actually actualize it and then say, well, if they can do it, so can I.
Yeah.
Goes for entrepreneurship too, right?
Yeah.
They raised $2 million. They raised $5 million. They raised $15 million. I can too.
Yeah, it's all about, seeing and believing.
Yeah. And that's why we tell these stories every week. I either have on funders or founders of funds or entrepreneurs looking for funding, because it's all about connecting women with each other so that we support each other.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So I want to talk about how we got our first group of investors, because I
Yes.
think that's worth talking about.
Absolutely.
Our fundraising journey was not easy, and we knew it wasn't going to be easy. But it really took us about 4 years to raise our first fund. And we're the kind of people that just don't give up. There were times when things got really, really tough, and we had to constantly lift each other up. And it's so lucky that we have each other when we grew so much together. But in that process, many, many times we're like, can we really do this?
But you know what? You made it
Yeah.
look so easy. People don't realize it took 4 years, but then really 4 years is not a lot of time to raise $15 million. I hear women every day I'm on the phone with, I raised 20 million, I raised 30 million. And I say, oh my God, that's incredible. And they say, oh, but it took me 10 years. I'm like, yeah, but you did it, and that's why I say to you, you did it.
Yeah.
And now you're raising $100 million fund. Am I right?
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah, so everyone's like, that's crazy, too much of a jump. But we know ourselves. Whatever we set out to do, we're going to do it, even if it's hard, even if it takes a little longer than expected.
Yeah.
So,
And that's the mindset it takes.
Yeah.
I can do this. I know I can do it. For my listeners, listen to what Pocket's saying. It's what you say and what you think and what you believe that's going to actually manifest. It's that powerful.
We believe
right?
that. Yes.
Yeah.
And in the whole process, we were able to meet so many amazing LPs that joined us. So LPs are investors in funds like
Right,
ours.
limited partners.
And what makes us really proud is we went the unconventional route. We raised money from 99 investors in Fund 1. So almost
Because the
hitting
max is 100, right? Yeah.
Exactly. So we really, pushed our limits, and we made it our mission to, make money for the right people. We want to make generational wealth for the people that we think, need that and
Right.
deserve that, but
So
didn't have
underserved
access.
communities.
Underserved communities.
Women, LGBTQ,
Yeah.
people of color, BIPOC.
Yeah.
You want to help create generational wealth for them.
Mm-hmm.
And, I know we were talking about this yesterday, that so many people in those categories have never been exposed to
Yes.
investing in venture capital. They don't know what an incredible and amazing world it is. Just yesterday we had some people sit in on our shoot and say, wow, I didn't even know this existed. Like, this gives me hope with all the challenging things going on in the world.
Yeah.
There is hope because there's so many women and people in these underserved communities with such incredible innovations that are going to impact the world in a positive way, that it gives us hope, right?
Yeah, my mission is really to help women and underserved populations to own a bigger part of the next big thing. And that comes from, you starting the next big thing.
Yes.
Or you joining the next big thing very early on as an employee, and you can earn equity from that.
Yes.
Or you can become an angel investor or a VC or an LP, so that you get ownership into some of these cutting edge new companies.
Right.
It could be that you use your expertise as an advisor and earn some equity through that with your knowledge. But anything, you have to own equity.
Right.
And something that people don't teach you at school is no one gets rich by a salary.
Right.
It's all about investing. It's all about diversification. It's about having something in your portfolio that creates really high returning top line returns for you.
Right. And passive income.
Yeah, so that you can have the freedom, you can have the autonomy at the time that you want it.
Right. And the more money you make in something like that, the more you can give back to your own community to help build up other entrepreneurs, right? So a lot of times people are risk adverse if they've not grown up with this way of thinking, especially women. And so, they go into safe stocks and bonds and real estate, and they're never going to get super rich in that either. But a lot of people, a lot of women and people in the underserved communities are not aware. Literally with the film, we're trying to pull the curtain back and say, hey, there's this whole incredible investment world. It's very exciting.
Yeah.
You can step in and hear from all the entrepreneurs that are coming up with ideas. If you're not one of those people yourself that have an idea, right?
Yeah.
You can invest in the people that do have the amazing ideas that are game changing and actually financially benefit from it. So you're doing two great things at once.
Yeah, there's a huge opportunity here because wealthy people expect an overall return of about 16 to 18% year over year. And this is their entire portfolio, from stocks to bonds to real estate to, everything. And, most people, their highest returning asset in their portfolio is about 16 to 18%. And maybe they don't even find that.
Right.
So you have to think about what drives that, 16 to 18% year over year as an overall portfolio. That's when you have something that returns, 30%, 70%, 100%
Right.
year over year. That helps drive up that overall return of your portfolio, right? And
Right.
that is mostly in alternative assets.
Right.
So,
And mostly it's men that are swimming in that pool. They know about venture capital.
Yeah.
They're making a lot of money. They have that education about it. That's what we're trying to do, right? We're trying to educate more women, more LGBTQ, more people of color, that there is this opportunity that you are unaware of.
yeah.
Go to the local angel group and educate yourself. Look up SoGal Ventures and go to their events and learn about it.
Yeah, we have an angel investing training program called
Right.
Vampire by SoGal.
That's
But
awesome.
what we realized in the process is 14 million households in the US qualify as accredited investors, but only about 300K of them are actually doing startup investing.
Yeah.
So all of these people, they're qualified to do it, but they don't know that they could, or they don't know how to get started.
Right.
So I always say that I want there to be, thousands more funds like SoGal, because we're not competing. Like there's
Right.
plenty and plenty of investors out
Right.
there that could benefit from this asset class. And yes, we're doing great. Our performance is awesome. Of course, we're biased, but there's really a huge opportunity for more and more people to get involved to fuel the next generation of innovation, technology, and make sure that it's more inclusive and benefits, all of us and not just a small group of people.
Right. It's a very exciting world to delve into. And I've been very fortunate to be introduced to people like you and the entrepreneurs in that sphere. I talk to them every day. I'm amazed at them every day. It brightens my day every day to talk to them because they're so brilliant and have such incredible ideas. I know you must love that part of it too.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, I mean, and and so many of the founders I encounter, they're like, "Pocket Sun, you're like the rising sun." It's like they want to get through to you. I can't imagine what your inbox must look like. I mean, everybody wants to talk to you. But you're right. It's really great that so many more female-founded funds are popping up, following in your footsteps. I'm glad there's an acceleration of them because, one person can't handle them all.
Yeah.
But how do you handle that? Like, everybody wants to talk to you. Like, what is, I mean, there must be an upside and downside of the success that you have having this successful venture capital fund. Like, everyone wants to talk to you. How do you handle that?
Oh, well. So I think in the early years, we were super, fortunate that, we were the first ones that really was like, banging on the table, like invest in women, let's do it.
Yeah.
So we got so many press and, media opportunities early on, which
the
really,
cover of Forbes.
that was totally an unexpected accident, but really helped us in the early days to establish our, credibility when we didn't have it. So I'd say, that helped us get a lot of attention, establish the brand, which, over time becomes more and more of a competitive moat because investors, know about SoGal. They come to us. They've come to our events. They've been on our newsletter for years. They have this goodwill towards us, which is really precious. And we have been very lucky to, we only invest in less than 0.1% of the deals that come through.
Right.
And we do a lot of, I guess for 99% of the deals that come through, we pass right away.
Right. And why is that? Like, what is it that those 100 deals come in and you see the one gem? What is it that sets it apart?
So each fund has their own thesis, right?
Right.
We have to stay very disciplined on how we deploy our capital as we promise to our LPs. So at SoGal, we invest in pre-seed and seed mainly. And there's, a certain range of check size that we're able to write. With Fund 2, that'll be 1 to 3 million in the first check. So we will be able to lead rounds pretty comfortably. And we invest in the future of living, working, and staying healthy. We invest in things that could change culture, shape the society, and really impact the next generation. So we're really passionate about the younger generation, the Gen Zs, the young millennials of the world, because they represent the hope, they represent change, they represent, a new way of where our world would be going. And I think they are really socially conscious, they're politically, awoke, and they're pushing for change, and I see hope in them. So I want to invest in companies that could really serve them, that could make change for them, that could, improve their quality of life and make things more inclusive. So we say that we invest in the next generation billion-dollar businesses that unapologetically benefit people, society, and the planet.
I love that.
And
So you get 100 in, and a lot of them don't even align with your thesis, right? Even though you say,
yes.
this is our thesis, they ignore that, hoping on a wing and a prayer that you're going to look at it, even though it has something to do with nothing that you invest in, right?
mostly
I know
men
there's
do
got to
that.
be a percentage of those. But you get in 100. Is it so exciting when out of that, let's say 100 that come in, you see that one gem that's the perfect fit, the perfect founder? It must be so exciting when you see that little diamond in the rough and you're like, that's the one. I mean, you must get really excited when you see that one.
Yes, I think this excitement is like our adrenaline.
Yes,
It keeps
yes.
us going.
Yeah.
And we like being the first investor.
Yeah.
We like, being the earliest investor
Yeah.
that is high conviction.
What's
that
the
really
last one that you
believe.
found that was like that you said we're going to invest in? Just remember the last one.
So recently we did this company called Indie Wild,
Oh,
and
yes.
it's a company that creates that combines clean chemistry and Ayurvedic rituals that have been around for thousands of years, similar to traditional Chinese medicine. So
Right.
like immediately I get it. I'm like, oh yeah, I could see how this combination could be such an interesting innovation for the younger, like South Asian descent women.
Right.
And so when we saw it, we just, felt that, this is incredible. They had amazing launch metrics, and they were able to launch in 3 countries within the first 3 weeks of their launch, which is, no easy thing to do.
Wow.
And we love companies that are global first, meaning,
Yeah. Oh.
you're not just focusing on one market, but your eyes are open. You
Wow.
build a global team, you have a global, business, and you want to expand outside of one geography. So we're excited by companies like that. And we're also very interested in companies that, are design driven, and that means companies that really design for the demographic they are going after. So Indie Wild is really designing for the modern Desi women who, feel this lineage to her culture and her heritage, but at the same time want something that's, modern, scientific, clean, and, represents her and the whole her. So I felt, Indie Wild really hits that pain point, and can create just this powerful brand that represent a new demographic that is on the rise and underrepresented.
And my guess is she'd have a hard time pitching a panel of all old white men. I mean, I don't think they would get that like you get it, And I think that's one of the cool things about why you're so good at picking what's the next big thing is, like you said, you had that background of recognizing brands that your millennials and Gen Zs and, younger people would be interested in. See, I don't even know the names of them, but that's how old I am. But that the younger people would be interested in purchasing or using or be excited about. And I think, that's the cool thing about people your age, starting their own funds and investing those funds in things that people your age are going to be interested in.
Yes.
That's a plus.
And we're not so arrogant to think that we know what the next generation like, the two of us, Elizabeth and I. So we are really, from day one, we have this community-powered approach, and we love companies that have the similar approach because there's so much, rich knowledge and insight from your community.
Right.
So like Indie Wild, for example, it says co-founded by you because from day one, they've been, doing these focus groups with the community members that follow Deepa, the founder, and co-create this product with your community, right? And for us as a fund, we really look to our community of the SoGal community is now just on our email list, almost 130,000 women strong worldwide.
Wow.
And we have like 50 chapters around the world. And
so when you invest in something, you have this huge community of people that will buy these products or use these services.
Yeah. And we listen to them and try to figure out, what are their pain points?
Right.
What is their life like? What is missing there?
Yeah.
And so we really look for, what are the cutting edge science, research, and, previously institutional grade experience, and like how could we consumerize that and provide it and make it more accessible for the younger generation. And so I want to mention that we also do really hardcore health tech investments because my partner Elizabeth has incredible expertise in that field. Yeah. She's really the best the best hidden secret in the U.S. healthcare investment. So we've been able to invest in incredible healthcare companies, digital healthcare companies.
Right, and that'll be good for the boomers too.
Yeah, that really bring a very savvy, future-proof healthcare experience at your convenience and affordable and accessible.
We need that.
And we also do future of work, which is how would the younger generation be working, and so the creative economy, the fact that people are all doing different things at the same time. They're all working remotely. As a team, Elizabeth and I have been working remotely from day one in 2015. And people used to be like, no way, you're in Singapore, she's in New York. How does that even work? And now everyone gets it. But we kind of, we're ahead of our time.
In so many ways. In so many ways. So if our listeners would like to be part of SoGal community, how would they do that?
So I would really encourage accredited investors to learn about startups.
Yes.
And there are multiple ways to do it. You could, the easiest way is to get on the newsletter of SoGal and just understand, what are the events out there? What is the information out there? Read about it and start, getting exposure to this world.
Right.
And we also have this incredible angel investing curriculum that Elizabeth and I created. And we've been able to train 160 women now through that program.
Bravo.
To really teach them the nitty-gritty, every single aspect of angel investing, startup investing. So if you're interested in VC, you could also really benefit from that. And if you're a founder, it's also super helpful to understand, how investors think behind the curtains.
Right.
And then,
so what do you have for them? Can they come to the events, or how do the founders participate?
So this is an online curriculum, so people can sign up and become an annual member.
So just SoGalVentures.com?
So it's actually fempire.imsogal.com.
Oh, okay.
So we created this program to make it super accessible to people. So our price of $500 a year as a donation is actually probably the cheapest in the market.
So the Fempire community is connected to SoGal.
Yes, so so the Fempire community also co-invests with us. So we've been doing 15 SPVs in the past year and a half.
Wow, special purpose vehicles.
Yes.
I know a lot of times we throw around these acronyms and
yes.
the listeners don't know what it means.
Thanks for that. So we enable our angels and our LPs to invest together in diverse-led startups. And of course, there's also our fund. I can't publicly advertise our fund,
right?
But we really encourage people who are interested in supporting women, supporting diversity, supporting and also adding a high returning asset to your portfolio. Get to know venture capital. It doesn't have to be the SoGal fund. Like there are so many funds, out there. Emerging managers are all having a hard time raising money. So try to see which fund speaks to you, and you can just Google search, VC fund for, the Black community, or VC funds for LGBTQ, or, anything that you're interested in, there's probably a fund out there.
That is
so
great
if you're
advice.
accredited, there are so many ways for you to get involved. And it's such
and
a
if you're
meaningful
not,
thing to
you
do.
could even, go to equity crowdfunding, I always say.
Yes,
which helps
Republic.
democratize
Yeah.
investing. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's really about ownership, and just,
Yes.
Having this mindset will dramatically change your wealth journey and change your career journey. The possibilities are endless.
I love that. We're going to end on that note. Pocket, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, your brilliance, and so happy to get to know you in person. You're iconic in this industry, and yet so humble and beautiful, and such a warm person. I'm so happy to have you on the show and get to know you.
Thank you so much, Catherine.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We appreciate you being participating with us today. Be sure to look up SoGal Ventures and, of course, follow She Angel Investors. And you can find both Pocket's son and myself, Catherine Gray, on LinkedIn. Make it a great week, everybody. And remember to invest in her.